Hello, National University Virtual High School students. This is Mr. Goyette coming back to you for our review of Unit 3 to get ready for the quiz and to also ready you for the AP exam when you take it either in this upcoming May or in years to come. So what I wanted to go over with you right now is continue where we left off with part 1 of our Unit 3 review. And we were just talking about Spanish-American War, what Roosevelt was doing at the time as Secretary of the Navy, his Rough Riders. We didn't get into segregation issues in the South at this time, as the African-American troops were taking part in the fight to free Cuba. And they were going into South to, of course, launch from their attack from Florida and other areas of the United States. And while they spent time in these towns, they noticed that they couldn't be served there, or wouldn't be served there, and it led to a number of things. Some soldiers, African-American soldiers, chopped down the trees that were used for lynching when they were not served in bars or in sandwich shops and stores. They would get together and pistol whip the store clerks or the store owners. Facing the segregation was very frustrating for them because they were going over to liberate and free the Cuban people from the tyranny of Spanish rule. Spain has its thumb on the Cuban people and they're suffering. Well, if you're an African American in the United States and you go down to the South or even some places in the North and try to just be treated like a human being, that wasn't happening very often. So it was very frustrating for the black regiments. The African American regiments went over to fight. Of course, there's an important textbook where, of course, they're helping the Rough Riders win some of these battles. They don't get a lot of press as successful units in fighting, although we've talked about the Massachusetts 52nd Regiment and how successful they were during the Civil War. So again, the the internal battles are as much the story as are the foreign ones. So let's continue with our review for Unit 3. Now we're just touching on the idea of realism as a genre in literature, and we had talked before in previous units about romanticism and how romanticism, we think of maybe a romance novel, but romanticism can include things like the Gothic novel. The idea is that it's taking you away. It's giving us almost supernatural romantic ideas about the world around you. It's fanciful, it's fantasy-like, so it takes you away from your everyday, the frustrations of your real world. Well, Mark Twain or Samuel Clemens and Stephen Crane were realists. They wanted to put you in the moment. They wanted to wake you up and say, this is what's really happening in these war zones and in these places in the United States. So it gave you a flavor of real life. It didn't try to take you away somewhere. So they portrayed life as it happened in the United States. Evangelical Protestants in the later 19th century often favored expansionism as a way to reach the lost souls of foreign heathens. The growth of popular entertainment in the late 19th century can be attributed to all of the following, except of course can be attributed to reduced hours on the job, increased advertisements are always the good pull, ease of transportation, and growth in urban cultures. All those things contributed to the growth of popular entertainment. The thing that did not boost that was the impact of Victorian values, because they were traditionally conservative. Muckrakers, a term that was coined by Theodore Roosevelt, described the practice of the journalists going out and finding the story that was going to get the industrialist in trouble or the government in trouble. So writers who made a practice of exposing the corruption of public and prominent figures. So if some CEO of a large company, J.P. Morgan or Carnegie or the president or somebody at the time was involved in something scandalous, they would go out there and try to dig and find the story. Hawaii was annexed to the United States when a joint resolution was passed by Congress during the Spanish-American War. The Inter-American Conference, you'll need to know about the Inter-American Conference, which was held in 1889, provided for the exchange of political, scientific, cultural information among member nations. And if you remember the opening picture in the textbook, there's this gigantic engine and people are are coming from all over the world to see some of the scientific advancements. And of course, Henry Ford's advancements are starting to democratize the automobile, making it more possible for everyone to, or more people that is, to buy. And of course, Henry Ford's key to democratizing the automobile was the mass production, the idea of interchangeable parts, the ability to put everything on an assembly line and produce a car in a short amount of time. So mass production through a continuous assembly line process was the key to the democratization, as they called it, of the automobile. The debate between progressives and business leaders over trusts, remember trusts are when those companies get together and form business alliances and groups that essentially corner the market. They, using the word monopoly might be a little aggressive or a little too critical, but a trust is bringing all the steel companies together or all the oil companies together. But they often found both groups in agreement in fundamental principles, the progressives and the business leaders, so they were able to find compromise at this time. Frederick W. Taylor, you will remember, he believed that management should take the responsibility of job-related knowledge and enforce its control of the workplace. He thought that the management should really be the guiding force there and not unions. Frederick W. Taylor. See how far along we are here. About 6 minutes in. Okay, so the Triangle Shirtwaist Company disaster in 1911 called national attention to the unsafe and oppressive working conditions in New York factories. The issue there was because you're always trying to lower costs and your bottom line is the most important thing you need to watch as a business person, and you need to make money for your stockholders and keep your business operating. You would look to cut costs. You might not always want to cut costs in your product because you want people to buy that product. So that would mean sometimes that at this time there were no OSHA laws, there were no laws restricting, significant laws restricting workplace environment, making sure that the lights were on, there were significant access to exits and clearly marked pathways in and out of the facilities. Well, because they're trying to, store owners and factory owners were trying to lower costs and were afraid that their workers would steal their some of their materials, they would lock doors or they would keep the lights on low to save money on energy costs. Well, these unsafe and oppressive working conditions in New York factories led to this the Triangle Shirtwaist Company disaster of 1911 and called national attention to these conditions in New York factories. During the Progressive era, American farmers experienced all of the following, except declining prices. The first decade, of course, they experienced expanding markets, increased production, decreased isolation, and but they did not experience declining prices. The first decades of the 20th century comprised the golden age of agriculture in America. Production markets expanded, prices were up, and rural free delivery broke down the isolation of the farm. So rural free delivery, that is, delivering milk, delivering the grains right to the farm, broke down those boundaries. So I got about a minute left. Let me get back here. So the key to success of the American Federation of Labor, again, it's a union organizing body, in the early 20th century was the union's limited membership and concentration on basic issues. That's why they were successful at the time. Women's Trade Union League, the WTUL, demanded its own program to educate the public on the problems of female workers. They organized women into trade unions. They lobbied the federal government for legislation protecting female workers, and they had a small membership. All of these things allowed them to function well in getting some laws passed and bring attention to the difficulties of working in America as a female. Consider the fine arts. Which of the following trends mark the progressive era in America? And of course, the progressive era was known for its poetry, which rejected traditional meter and rhyme, as